moment there for Oliver Rowland coming through.
He's very, very wide coming in. He did that on the previous lap as well. Locks up the rears, runs a little bit wide. So this is going to be quite critical for Oliver Rowland.
Yeah, Verne coming out of the final corner. What can the French driver do then? On the podium for DS Penske very recently, and goes to the top of the pile by nearly half a second. That was a fantastic lap time there for Rowland. He comes across the timing line and doesn't improve. Oliver Rowland is out of qualifying. Now let's piece together what happened here for Oliver Rowland. I think he ended up in the wall before that. He did. Left rear, clattered straight into it. Verne for DS Penske makes it through. Likewise, Jake Dennis, Season 9 World Champion. Mortara continues his strong form in the Mahindra and is through. And Cassidy also goes into the duel. Has Barnard been able to keep it all together to the checkered flag? Comes across the line, goes fastest of the lot. A 1:08.968 for him. Can Verline do anything? Currently 7th fastest, unless he has the mother and father of all final sectors as De Vries goes and equals Barnard's time at the top of the pile. Verline does not improve and is out of qualifying. Ticktum pops himself up into 4th place and knocks out Mitch Evans there as well. So, at the end of Group B qualifying, it is Barnard, De Vries, Buemi and Dan Ticktum, the 4 drivers that make it through. Mortara versus Dennis then. Mortara exits out of the final corner. What's the lap time going to be for him as he comes across the line? It's a 1:07.289. 2 corners now remain here for Jake Dennis. 1 more as he comes through turn 18. And is he going to be able to out-qualify Eno Mortara? And he comes to take the checkered flag, and he does so by just 4/100ths of a second. So quarterfinal 2 then, Nick Cassidy versus Jean-Eric Verne. Jaguar versus DS Penske. Bit wide there for Cassidy out the final corner. Comes across the timing line, takes the checkered flag with a 1:07.1, and Verne has quite clearly made a mistake here.
I think he's made a couple because he was wide when we picked him up then as well. And so therefore Jean-Eric Verne, not a good lap, a couple of big mistakes.
Quarterfinal 3 then, Sebastian Buemi versus Nick De Vries, Envision versus Mahindra. Buemi catching a little bit in the final sector, comes over to the timing line to take the checkered flag, a 1:07.601 for Buemi. De Vries, though, out of the final corner, he comes to break the beam, and what can the time be? It's a 1:07.1, so De Vries is through into the semi-finals for Mahindra. So quarterfinal 4, a battle of the Britons then, Dan Ticktum versus Taylor Barnard. Ticktum makes his way through the final couple of corners. Barnard's brought the gap back to his favour. 2 1,000ths in it as they were through the second sector. Ticktum to the timing line, a 1:06.958. This is going to be very close between the two. What can Barnard do in response? 2 100ths of a second in it as they come through the final corner. Ticktum versus Barnard. Who goes through and into the semi-finals here in Jakarta? It is Taylor Barnard by 5,000ths of a second. That's a great lap time for the 21-year-old from Norwich. Semi-final 1, Jake Dennis versus Nick Cassidy, Andretti versus Jaguar, Britain versus Kiwi.
This is going to be a real uphill struggle for Nick Cassidy as he's now coming down into that same hairpin where we picked up Dennis before.
Cassidy must have made a mistake quite clearly on that lap, because 0.6 of a second after being a 10th down in Sector 1 is, well, a very big amount of time. Dennis comes across at the timing line. It's a 1:06.765, and yeah, Cassidy has continued.
Another big mistake.
Exactly, yeah, it's all gone wrong for Nick Cassidy, unfortunately then here. As you can see, he's dropped down now over 2 seconds behind Jake Dennis. So the Season 9 World Champion will go into the finals. Semi-final 2, who will be joining Jake Dennis in the finals then? Will it be Nick De Vries or will it be Taylor Barnard? De Vries a 20.493 in Sector 2. What can Taylor Barnard do in response to that? Through the fast and frighteningly blind corners, and Barnard building out a bit more of an advantage to over 1/10 of a second. So De Vries is going to have a brilliant final sector, or hope that Barnard doesn't have such a corker. Out of the final corner we go for Nick De Vries, comes to take the checkered flag, a 1:07 flat then for the former world champion, and Taylor Barnard again continues on an absolute flyer then here. He is just pulling it out of the bag lap after lap here in Jakarta, comes to the timing line and does go through into the finals, out-qualifying Nick De Vries by nearly 0.3 of a second. Season 9 world champion versus a driver who probably will end up being a world champion one day. First sector for Jake Dennis, an absolute stonker, 19.5 for the Andretti driver. What can Barnard do in response to that? It's quicker still, 2/100ths of a second faster for Taylor Barnard in the Neon McLaren.
Yeah, a little bit of margin out to the wall there for Jake Dennis as he came through turn 12 into the hairpin at 13.
This is going to be mightily close as Dennis comes through into the final sector. Barnard with a snap of oversteer there through turn 12 might cost him 0.5 of a second or so. What can Dennis do though?
Barnard's made a mistake at the hairpin.
Yeah, Barnard makes a mistake down at turn 13, so that's going to gift Jake Dennis pole position surely as we come out of the final corner. Dennis comes across the timing line, a 1:06.713 for Jake Dennis, and Barnard with a mistake on his final flying lap here in this session. Out of the final corner we go for Taylor Barnard, and it is not going to be enough to depose Jake Dennis and deny the Season 9 world champion his first pole position since Berlin last year back in May. Jake Dennis and Andretti are back on top.